Hello and welcome to another edition of the Avid Screencast. My name is Christian Förster, and this week we'll continue our series on color correction by correcting the color balance of an image. There are basically two ways to do it, one with the color wheels and one with the curves. But as I personally prefer the curves in Avid anyway, we'll start with them. Now this is the image that we want to correct. It has obviously been shot at night, so it's pretty dark and very bluish. But let's pretend that this was actually shot during the day, only severely underexposed and with the wrong white balance. I have already changed the contrast of the image to make it look a bit more like daylight, but it's still way too blue, of course. So how do we go about this? First, let's change our waveform to the RGB parade. You can see here the different waveforms for each color channel, red, green, and blue, and they actually connect nicely with the curves. If you change a curve, it will reflect instantaneously in one of the channels. If we want to correct the white balance and the black balance of this image, first of all, we'll have to set our reference points. So where in the image is black and where in the image is white. Now white is pretty easy. It should be probably this graffiti here is probably been white, or even if it isn't, you would think it is. That's white. That's good enough for us. Or his shoes as well. They're pretty much at the same point, so somewhere in the middle should be our white. Probably this or this point. Now with the black it's a little more difficult. Which part of the image should be black? Maybe this here, maybe these lines, but they're kind of difficult to make out maybe, especially with our software waveformer. So I settled for the lamppost here. That should be black or something similar to black anyway, and it's pretty easy to make out in the waveform. So let's first check out the black balance. Now there's our lamppost, it's on the right side of the image, and it's pretty easy to find in our waveform because there's actually no highlights, it's pretty much black from top to bottom. And look here, no highlights, only shadows. So this is actually our lamppost and the car. And if you look to the bottom here, that looks pretty much alright. So the black balance looks like it's pretty much on the same level on all three channels. So we actually don't have to change a lot of that. So let's just pretend for a moment that the black level is severely out of order. Here the setup of the reds is way too high. So what we would do is drag the lower button of the red channel down until all three of them match. So now let's go for the highlights. They are obviously not balanced. There's a lot more in the blue and the green channel than in the red channel. A lot of the red channel is missing. Again, let's look at what our white should be. Let's settle for this here. That should be the highest highlight. That should be white. Okay, we can find this here in our waveform. And as we can see, there's way too little red in here. So let's crank up the red by dragging the upper button to the left. Let's leave it at that, and there's a bit too much blue, so let's take the blue one down a bit. Okay. Now again, with the software scope, it's very difficult to see. So let's use a little trick. We know this should be white, and as it is white, or at least colorless, all the R and G and B values should of course be the same. So this is where this part of the interface comes in handy. As you can see, if I move the mouse over these two fields here, it becomes a color picker. And also there is RG and B values. So just drag from this field to where you want to check out the color. And we can see here, there's still a bit too little red, but that is actually okay. Red and green are, basically the same. And there's still too much blue in there. So let's take down the blue a bit further and check again. Still. Now we're in the ballpark. Red is 180. Yeah. It's kind of in the same region. So that is actually pretty nice. Could actually decrease blue even a bit more. And now we're pretty much where we want to be. The whites are white and the blacks are hopefully black. Yeah, that's pretty much all right. Now we've set our references, the black and the white. They, not always, but most of the time should really be white or black. Things can be different if, your content needs it to be different, but generally white should be white and black should be black, just for reference for the viewer. Now the rest of the colors you can, change the way you like it. Now this is where it becomes highly personal. But a good way to go about it is checking the skin tones. Again, I'll use the color picker for that. And just check the skin tone here. And these skin tones are actually pretty much all right. Generally, they should be with a Caucasian skin, basically. They should be 10 to 15% more red than green and blue. And we have actually a bit too much red, maybe. So we could maybe take a bit of red out of the gamma of the image. Just click somewhere on the red curve and it will generate a new color point and drag that down just a tiny bit. Okay. Now there we are. We have changed the skin tones, or actually not just the skin tones, but all the middle values of color in the image without actually changing the white balance point. Okay, now this is looks very, very decent, I think. Let's contrast that with what we had before. This is the blue image, and this is what it looks like now. And I'd say that is a decent job of doing it. Now that is the way you can change the color balance with curves, and I think it's a pretty straightforward process. And what I like about it especially is that you can have instant visual feedback with the RGB parade. If you want to learn a lot more on color correction, I really strongly recommend Steve Hullfish's book, The Art and Technique of Digital Color Correction. You can buy it from Amazon, and if you use the link in the show notes to do so, I'll get a nice kickback. Thank you for watching this episode of the Avid Screencast. If you like, you can subscribe to the podcast at avidscreencast.com or on iTunes. Just search for Avid and it'll be there. On the website, you can also check out past episodes, soon also in HTML5 if I figure out how to do it, that it really, really works in any browser. So you can watch on your iPad as well, if you have one. Don't forget to write to me if you like at mail@avidscreencast.com, or just comment on the website. And follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/avidscreencast, and on Facebook, facebook.com/avidscreencast. Check out my professional, personal, whatever promotional website at editguy.de if you want to hire me, which I would appreciate as well. And once again, thanks for watching this episode. See you next week. Goodbye.